Because I have the most expensive Pokemon card around my neck, and
Yeah, let's see it.
Superman.
Oh my God.
It'd be one of them.
I think Logan Paul's involved with chat is a scam. In my opinion, I think the dude is the biggest fraud that has ever happened in the history of America. The reason why this is a scam is because this Illustrator card, if you look at it, it's not a PSA Gem Mint 10. This is an 8 that Logan got regraded twice that somehow got upgraded to a 10. And the centering on this is trash. It's not a 10. That's why this card is a fraud. If you get this regraded, not as Logan Paul, it's an 8, 8.5. It's not that good of a card. Every expert will tell you this is not that good of a card. But somehow Logan Paul somehow got a Gem Mint 10.
Hey, watch the cards.
So Logan Paul supposedly flipped his PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator card for $60.5 million. Sounds insane, right? The problem is, the way it happened doesn't feel real. The bidding looks too clean, almost like it was guided. The reactions don't quite match the moment either. And right as all of this is happening, he's already pushing a new digital collectibles business, which starts to feel a lot like the same idea, just repackaged. If you're still putting money into anything connected to Logan right now, it's not just risky, it's a serious gamble. And it gets worse. He posted on Twitter claiming people received refunds from the liquid marketplace situation, but once you look into user reports, a very different picture starts to form. Some are saying they got back as little as 1% of what they originally invested. That's not a real refund. That's a loss being reframed to sound less severe than it actually is. Looking closer, there's a lot to unpack. The card was said to have sold after a major bidding war, but the way it unfolded didn't feel natural. One tweet pointed out that if a seller is reacting wildly, celebrating and yelling, "No way, bro," at your offer.
Possible angle, and I concluded this is a 1-1.
Wow.
So if it truly is a 1-1,
Yep.
it sits against all the other icons like the Mickey Mantle,
Indeed.
PSA 10, of which there's 3,
Indeed.
the Wagner 8.
Indeed.
If those cards sold today, I mean, you know better than anyone.
Yep.
I think they're 50 to 70 million personally.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, you did your diligence, bro.
So
Good
you
for
know,
you.
I think this card's a $100 million card. It just
This-
depends on how long you want to wait. But I got to tell you, man, I mean, we're printing the money like crazy,
Yep.
and the currency is being fundamentally debased, and
Yep.
these store value assets, like collectibles,
Yep.
like gold.
Yep.
Buy a T-Rex dinosaur fossil. That's on my list.
What?
I'm gonna buy the Declaration of Independence, maybe from you.
Yep.
We'll find out.
Bro, this is crazy.
And I'm not stopping there. This was only the beginning.
Yep.
This is my brother, Tony Mucci.
Pooch, bro.
He's a film director,
Oh, Pokemon Master.
and we have been fans of Pokemon since we were kids.
Oh my God.
This was the right way to start the treasure hunt.
You just starting?
I just started it, baby.
Yes. Bro, that is so epic.
The treasure hunter.
The treasure hunt.
And if you want to learn more about it,
Yes, I do.
go to treasuretrove.com
I'm so intrigued.
and follow
I'm
at
so
Treasure Trove on
intrigued.
Instagram. There's a lot more coming, my man.
This is crazy.
This is crazy,
Just the
dude.
beginning.
This is bigger than the card. It's bigger than me. I don't even understand what's happening right now, but it's surreal, dude.
Bro,
It's surreal.
God bless you. I think this is a great first acquisition for that treasure
I
collection.
fucking agree, my
Oh
man.
my God.
I agree, dude.
You're a gangster. You are fearless, bro. I was talking to the camera, thinking I was talking to someone out there in the
My
audience.
man.
He's right over there. He's just right over there.
We were listening. Oh, we were listening.
Here, so is Rip It Ray.
That's usually a clear signal. You're overpaying, and that logic holds. If the seller can't believe the number you're offering, you're probably not paying for true value. You're buying into hype. For context, Logan said he bought the card for around $5 million back in 2021. But that figure has been heavily questioned. There are real doubts about whether that number was ever accurate. The card itself is undeniably rare. It's an Illustrator card from a contest years ago, labeled PSA 10, which is supposed to represent flawless condition, at least officially. But when collectors take a closer look, they point out edge whitening and small imperfections. Some argue it doesn't deserve a PSA 10 at all and could realistically fall closer to an 8. And that difference isn't minor. It has a serious impact on value. Then there's how the card has been handled. It's appeared in questionable settings, like sitting near greasy pizza boxes or showing up in staged photos. Even if it stayed inside a case, that kind of exposure for something this rare feels careless. It gives the impression that something extremely valuable is being treated more like a prop than a serious collectible. Then things shift again when the card gets flipped, this time for $16.5 million. That's still a massive number. But the moment that stands out is when the buyer goes on stream and says he believes the card could be worth $100 million. Logan's reaction feels restrained. He barely responds. Just a quiet, yeah, wow, with almost no emotion behind it. Instead of feeling exciting, the moment comes across as awkward. Even Ken Golden appears slightly uncomfortable, barely making eye contact with the buyer and glancing toward Logan, as if trying to read the situation. The atmosphere feels tense, like something isn't fully adding up. At the same time, reactions on Twitter were intense, but Logan had his comments turned off, so none of that criticism showed up under his posts. He was also blocking users, which only added to the suspicion. People were asking direct questions about how he plans to handle transactions for those who bought fractional shares of the card through Liquid Marketplace, and those questions still don't have clear answers. At this point, it stops being just about one card. It starts to point toward a broader pattern. Over the past few years, Logan has played a noticeable role in pushing the Pokémon card market into a hype-driven space, where prices rise quickly but don't always reflect real value. What used to be a simple hobby has shifted into something driven by attention, money, and viral moments. Some argue that rising prices can benefit collectors, and in certain cases, that's true. But when those prices are built mainly on hype rather than real demand, they can drop just as fast. We've seen this before, especially with NFTs, where values surged quickly and then collapsed just as hard. Hype can build value overnight and erase it just as quickly. There are also moments that make people question the intent behind all of this, like when Logan bought a first edition Pokémon box that later turned out to be fake. Even though suspicions were raised early, the situation still went viral and brought attention to his other projects. At a certain point, it starts to feel less like collecting and more like calculated promotion. Then there's the Crypto Zoo situation, where fans reportedly lost significant amounts of money and refunds didn't fully materialize as expected. That adds another layer of doubt every time a new project is introduced. Bringing it back to the card, it was listed on Liquid Marketplace, where people could buy fractional shares. At first, the idea sounds interesting, even innovative. But then things take a turn. Logan reportedly bought the card back himself for around $250,000, even though users had collectively invested close to $2.5 million. That's where the situation really begins to break down.
So here's what's happening, and I'm telling you what's going on because I know people in this industry chat. It's Logan and his gang went around the world in 80 days to everyone who's a Saudi prince and all these Saudi guys and told them how this is the new thing and everyone should be collecting this, and this is art. And this is the thing to invest in. So they went to all the Saudi people that he probably met from Jake, from all the boxing stuff, and he told them all to invest in Pokemon cards. And they are destroying the market. Not murdering, destroying them. Who can afford this? Who wants to buy a $150,000 Mewtwo? It's stupid. It's so dumb. He ruined it. If I can't buy this, why did this price go up 33% overnight? It's because Logan. It's because Logan is making it by telling all of his Saudi friends to buy it, and he's making this an impossible hobby to get into now. It's impossible. Why would Logan sell this card or care about this at all if he didn't, like, this was his baby, quote unquote, right, for years. He had this as his baby. This was all I saw about him was WWE and this, and that he owed people money. If this was really his baby, and he knew it was going to be worth $100 million, he wouldn't sell it. He'd be like, dude, this is just proof that the card company and card business is going to go up. He sold it for a reason. You got the bag. This miniature Hassan got the bag. And there's the worst two people you could ever do a deal with right in front of you. Golden and Logan Paul. And you bought an $18 million chain from them. You got scammed to hell. And they're just looking at you laughing. Golden's a scumbag from the dark depths of the ocean. And this guy can't even look at you. You got scammed so hard. He's looking at Logan like, is this retard for real? Did he really just give me $1.8 million? Logan's just like, right. He can't even do his WWE act on this guy. He's just like, holy fuck.
Not long after, the same card ends up being sold again for millions. Meanwhile, those original buyers were left dealing with issues like being unable to withdraw funds or taking heavy losses. That's why so many people are frustrated. It's not just numbers on a screen, it's real money that people couldn't access. Then Logan responded on Twitter, opening by calling it an epic night and thanking the Pokémon community. But that tone doesn't match what actually happened. It leans into celebration while avoiding the concerns people have been raising. He explained that only a small portion of the card was sold on Liquid Marketplace, not the larger amount people believed. He also said he bought it back at the same price and made funds available for users to withdraw, but that still doesn't align with what many users are reporting, which keeps the situation unclear. Then there's the part where he says the site going offline was outside of his control. That's where more questions start to surface. He talks about the platform like it's separate from him, even though he's a co-founder. Naturally, that raises doubts about how much responsibility he's actually taking. If you build the system, you're expected to stand behind what happens inside it. That's the baseline. He also said he personally paid to bring the site back online so users could withdraw funds. On paper, that sounds positive. But it's also the bare minimum when it's tied directly to your own project. The way it's framed makes it sound like an extra effort rather than a basic responsibility. He wraps it up by congratulating the buyer and calling the sale a historic moment. And sure, it might be remembered for a while, but realistically, most people will move on, while the financial impact stays with those who were actually involved. That's the core issue here. It's not just about a single sale, it's about the pattern, how things are presented, how problems are handled, and who actually takes responsibility when things go wrong.
On February 11, 2026, where Logan says LM has advised that unclaimed funds have been released and can now be withdrawn. Then we ran into this little issue where the one-time password that was used previously by the users of the platform, and no one was able to log in to my knowledge. No one that I talked to. I asked. The closest thing I saw was that they could try to log in. The one-time password did not function. Now we get into a user who is now able to withdraw $182.83. So surely that's the amount of money they put into the platform, right? Not even close. Their balance previously, $16,798.16. That's quite the drop here. Where's the rest of the money on the item that didn't sell out?
People keep coming back to the same point. If you run the platform, you're in control. There's no real way around that. What makes the timing worse is the contrast. While Logan is celebrating a massive sale and showing off millions, others connected to CryptoZoo and Liquid Marketplace are still dealing with losses or unresolved issues. That gap between what's shown publicly and what people are actually experiencing becomes impossible to ignore once you see it. Logan said the card didn't sell out on Liquid Marketplace, claiming only about 5.4% was sold. But at the same time, official Liquid Marketplace accounts were posting that the card was completely sold out. That's a direct contradiction. One side says barely anything moved, while the other says everything was gone. It doesn't add up. People picked up on this quickly. One post pointed out that if only around 5% was sold and he bought it back for roughly $250,000, then why was the platform promoting a full sellout worth close to $2.5 million? That's not a small gap. It's a massive disconnect. And gaps like that don't just sit quietly. They force bigger questions. There were even screenshots showing the platform clearly stating that the card shares were sold out at the exact same time these other claims were being made. Instead of clearing things up, it only adds more confusion. Then came claims that users could withdraw funds once the site was back online. But this is where things take a more serious turn. A well-known Pokémon investigator, Rattled Pokémon, said he had been in direct contact with buyers, and many still couldn't properly access the platform, let alone withdraw their money. To be fair, some users are able to log in, but what they're actually getting back is unexpected. Instead of full refunds, people report receiving very small amounts, sometimes around 1% of what they originally invested. One example showed someone who put in over $16,000 and could only withdraw about $150. That's not a minor loss. It's significant. Once numbers like that start coming out, it's no surprise regulators begin to take interest. The Securities and Exchange Commission has been reviewing situations like this, and in Canada, the Ontario Securities Commission has already raised serious concerns about Liquid Marketplace. They described it as a multi-layered fraud, with claims that top executives allegedly redirected investor funds for personal use and provided misleading information during investigations. Names like Ryan Bahari, Amin, Nick, and Dennis were mentioned in those claims, but Logan wasn't included. That left many people confused. Even if he wasn't officially named, he was still publicly tied to the platform as a co-founder. And that leads to a bigger question: how was he able to buy the card back in the first place? That move alone raised concerns. Fans had already invested in shares expecting some form of ownership. Then the card gets taken back and later sold again for a much higher price, without those investors seeing any benefit. If those shares carried real value, people would expect returns when the price increased. Instead, many were left with losses. And just when the situation already seems complicated, another layer appears. There are claims that Logan may have profited by betting on the outcome of his own card sale. Platforms like Polymarket allow users to bet on outcomes like final sale prices, meaning people could place wagers on whether the card would sell above certain levels. That's when unusual activity started to stand out. New accounts appeared and placed aggressive bets on higher price ranges shortly before the sale ended. That alone raised suspicion. Looking deeper, those accounts had randomly generated profile images, which are typically unique. But when people compared one of those accounts to Logan's promotional content, the images appeared identical. That detail is what pushed people to look closer. The account activity didn't follow a typical pattern either. It started with smaller bets, then suddenly spiked, followed by pullbacks. It doesn't match the behavior you'd expect from regular users. Reportedly, that account made over $300,000. To be clear, nothing has been officially confirmed. But in traditional financial markets, a situation like this would raise serious concerns around insider trading. That's why people are watching this closely. From the outside, it looks like questionable decisions are happening in plain sight, yet there's still no clear resolution. At the same time, the celebration around a multi-million-dollar sale continues, and that contrast is hard to ignore. People from earlier projects are still waiting for real outcomes. That's what keeps this story alive. While those issues remain unresolved, Logan is already moving into a new project called Rip It.
What's up, collector? Rip It is coming soon, and you're gonna wanna be first in line. So we're growing our wait list for users to get early access and to give back to the day one collectors who help us grow this thing. Top referrers will climb the leaderboard to get rewarded with things like the holographic pull from this first edition heavy pack, a $30,000 base set unlimited box, and a PSA 9 first edition Lugia valued at roughly $7,000. Additionally, for every milestone of users that we hit, we'll do giveaways with the entire community with things like this crystallized Daniel Arsham Squirtle figure, multiple sets of base set packs, a first edition heavy pack, other great cards like Arcanine, Snorlax. You get the point. Awesome stuff, guys. My team and I are grinding 24/7 to bring this platform to life. So please tell your friends and get ready to rip it.
And it feels familiar. The idea sounds simple. You buy trading card packs online, but instead of opening them yourself, someone else opens them on camera. After that, you can sell the cards instantly, store them, or have them shipped to you. But the obvious question is still there. Why not just open them yourself? The platform frames it as convenience, saying it handles everything for you. But at the end of the day, you're still paying for something that someone else opens. And that's where people start questioning the real value. Some people online have already pointed this out, comparing it to a reworked version of earlier ideas. Same concept, different packaging, and when you look at the timing, it becomes even more noticeable. This massive Pikachu card sale pulled in a huge wave of attention. At the same time, it boosted auction platforms, pushed new projects into the spotlight, and even led to the buyer launching a site to showcase collectibles. AJ Scaramucci has already mentioned building a platform to document rare items, and while it's presented as a showcase, many expect it could eventually turn into another way to profit from these assets. That pattern keeps repeating. Big hype, a surge of attention, then new platforms built around it. When you step back and connect everything, the card sale, marketplace issues, refund complaints, the betting situation, and now another project, it starts to form a much bigger picture. This doesn't feel like a one-off. It feels like a pattern. So what happens now? Do regulators step in? Do people actually get their money back? Or does this just happen again under a different name? Because at this point, people aren't just watching, they're waiting to see if anyone is ever going to be held accountable. Drop your take, because this one's not that simple.